Yeah, fucking hung me out to dry there, though, didn't you, Jesus? Fucking hell.
I think this year the roster looks really thick and full in its depth, all the way down to third or fourth options in some of our positional rooms.
But yo, we've done it. Yo, what the fuck was that? Where the fuck? I've never said yo in my entire life. Where the fuck did that come from? But yo, oh fucking hell, I've done it again. Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks and football fans everywhere, a very warm welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Pre-season has wrapped up. The games are done. It is now time to get down to the main business, the main show. The regular season is right around the corner. We are now firmly in the run up to it. Like I say, pre-season done, 2-1 on the pre-season. I can't remember the last time the Seahawks had a winning record in pre-season, so that's something. It might not be too long ago, but it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that we were winning games in pre-season. So positive signs. Obviously, a lot of guys grabbing the headlines. Certain players in particular that again we'll touch on tonight, because tonight is going to be our 53-man roster announcement reaction. We're going to go over some of the notable inclusions, some of the notable omissions. Obviously, Seahawks have made a couple of moves as well in the time that we've been preparing to record this podcast. A few waiver wire pickups that we're going to talk about as well. But it's mainly going to centre around who's made the team, who hasn't, who are Seattle trying to get back on the practice squad, and who are they maybe happy to let go of. But as always, I've got my right-hand man, Pez, with me to break down this. I'm sure he's going to have a couple of guys in mind that he's going to be desperate to talk about for good or bad reasons tonight. Pez, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Good. Is that it?
That's all I've got. That's all
Is
I've
that all
got
you
for
got? Oh, fucking hell.
I'm all business. I'm all business tonight. All business.
Oh, yeah. Don't fucking hung me out to dry there, though, didn't you? Jesus. Fucking hell. Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Mitch, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, very good. Enjoying all the excitement of the roster and the players returning to the practice squad, and hyped to maybe see some trades and things at the moment. Very exciting times, and glad to be on.
Yeah, it's a mental time, isn't it? It's why are you still laughing, Pez? Come on.
Mitch has made me look bad.
I had to. I was going to go with the I'm fine, but then you've had that, so you forced me into this.
Do you know what? I thought you were going to do that. You were like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, please don't say anything more. Please don't.
But yeah, no, it's a mental time. Trades and everything's kicking off in the NFL at the minute. Teams scrambling to make last-minute additions before the regular season starts, and obviously with these new regulations surrounding the way the rosters are constructed at this time of year, it is just made for a whole mental sort of dam breaking of moves and guys being released and ran. It's just mental at the minute. But the Seahawks have finalised their decisions. The 53-man roster is set. So I'm going to go over it. Bear with me. I'll try and do it as quickly as I possibly can. Quarterbacks, Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Running backs, they're carrying 4 this year. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, DJ Dallas, and Kenny McIntosh, the 7th-round pick. Wide receivers, we've gone with 6. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jake Bobo, Derek Young, and Cody Thompson. Tight end, we've rolled with 3. Will Disley, Noah Fant, and Colby Parkinson make up the tight end room. On the offensive line, we are carrying 9 players on this year's squad at this moment in time. Charles Cross, Damian Lewis, Evan Brown, Phil Haynes, Abraham Lucas, Oluwole Watimi, Anthony Bradford, Jake Curhan, and Stone Forsyth. On the defensive line, we've got 6 players here: Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, Mario Edwards Jr., Mike Morris, Miles Adams, and Cameron Young. At linebacker, I think this is our most sort of bountiful position group, the most that we've got: 10. Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, Devin Bush, John Rattigan, Hall of Fame, Nick Ballore, Uchenna Nwosu, Darryl Taylor, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, and Tyreek Smith. Obviously, some of those maybe going to be more edge rushers, but being classed as linebackers as well. Cornerback, we're rolling with 6. Tariq Woolen, Trey Brown, Michael Jackson, Devin Witherspoon, Kobe Bryant, and Artie Burns. Safety, we've got 4. Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Julian Love, and Jarrett Reed II. And on the special teams, making 3 players, Michael Dixon, Jason Myers, and long snapper Chris Stoll. Any guys on there that you want to talk about? For me, I'll just throw one out there that I was a little bit surprised made the back end of the wide receiver room. Cody Thompson, maybe, over Matt Landers. Interested to hear your thoughts on this, lads, because Matt Landers is one of the undrafted free agent pickups that everyone got hyped for. More people were hyped for him over than someone who's made it in Jake Bobo. There wasn't as much hype surrounding Jake Bobo as there was Matt Landers. Matt Landers being this massive physical freak at 6'4", the speed that he runs. But from what I saw in preseason, yes, he had that fuck it, Landers is out there catch in week 1. But other than that, in the Green Bay game, I seem to remember him dropping a few really rather catchable passes, and just didn't feel like he really made the most of his opportunity. Well, obviously, someone like a Jake Bobo, who's in his kind of shoes as well, another undrafted free agent, just sort of puts on one of the all-time preseason displays for the Seahawks, especially that I can remember, and firmly grabs his spot on the 53. Didn't feel like Matt Landers did that, and Cody Thompson made a couple of plays. He always seems to do this, Cody Thompson. He makes a couple of plays in preseason, and then he either makes the 53 or they cut him and then they bring him back on waivers, and he appears once or twice during the regular season, makes a big play on special teams or something like that, and then that's all you see. But they've gone with him again over Matt Landers. What are the thoughts on him?
I was, when you said his name, I completely forgot about him, didn't even register him, and I was just like, oh, that must, to me, he's familiarity, and with like D. Eskridge getting suspended, Derek Young probably going on. Did he go on IR? Did he get caught? Can he go straight on IR?
He's on the 53.
Yeah, but he's probably going to go on IR. Potentially. I just think it's more familiarity with Cody Thompson over like a Matt Landers or someone like that. I'd reckon he'd come back on the practice squad. But yeah, it was surprising because I don't remember him through preseason, and he didn't do anything that stood out. He didn't even have that,
He battled injury during preseason, so he didn't feature in all 3 games fully. I think you would have seen more.
It's weird though, because like he's normally the last 2 years, it's always Cody Thompson's ripping it up in preseason. He's the hype boy, and then Bobo came in, and he's the hype boy. And to be honest, I completely forgot about Cody Thompson for the majority of it. But like you pointed out, James, Matt Landers didn't do himself any favors. Like, it is literally, he probably is. Like, wouldn't surprise in the next couple of days if he just got cut. Like,
yeah, it was a strange one. Like, say for me, I was really convinced Matt Landers had the best chance out of pretty much all of our undrafted free agents to make the squad. Like I said, I didn't see Jake Bobo coming. I don't think any of us really saw Jake Bobo coming. Mitch, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on Landers. Landers was somebody I liked coming in because his physical sort of attributes and his athletic sort of testing make him really stand out. He's one of those guys that does well in college because he's got the physical edge on a lot of people his age. Coming into the pros, you need to be a bit more polished. You need to add a bit onto that. And in some ways, we already have Matt Landers on the roster in Derek Young. We look at Derek Young and we see a big frame, like good athleticism, plagued a little bit by niggly injuries at the moment, Derek Young. But we already have that guy in that room. If you see what I mean, if you have both, you've basically got 2 shots at having a mini Metcalf on the roster. And And when you put Landers and Bobo side by side, you've got the complete opposite end of the scale in terms of one guy excelled in college because of athleticism and an advantage over people, and needed to come to the NFL and add fundamentals and route running and these things to those advantages he had. Jake Bobo succeeded in college without them, meaning that he had to be a polished route runner. He had to be exceptional at getting separation. He had to be, to have those little tricks and fine tune everything in order to make it. So the things that Landers needed to add were the things Bobo already had. And in terms of the profile that Landers had, we've already got it in Derek Young. So that's how I look at it and how it's shaken out now, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The backup we've got to the wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 provide different things, different specialities, different. Landers just became another of the same. I think he goes practice squad. I think we'll try to get him back. None of the Seahawks players had claims against waivers, so every single player that we cut, we can make offers to return. And all 3 of our players that we put injured waiver designations on have all returned as well, which was Sutherland. It was Joey. It was Blount, Sutherland, and there was another one.
I
cannot remember who it was. I will find out, but yeah, either way, we can re-sign anyone that we released. Basically, is what I'm saying. So if they do think that Landers has a chance to contribute, especially on teams, I think we will see him back.
Yeah. I think, like I say, I think he's got too many raw, natural intangibles that the Seahawks would like to just try and quietly stash him away on that practice squad and see if they can develop him rather than thrust him into the 53 and potentially when he's not ready yet, maybe he's just too raw of a prospect at this moment in time. But yeah, like I say, I think there's definitely still potential for Landers to stick around in Seattle. I'm going to make a quick adjustment on the roster there because obviously the roster that I viewed was from yesterday, and in the pretty much the last sort of hour or so, Artie Burns, the cornerback, has been released or waived to replace by Kyu Blu Kelly from Stanford, cornerback, rookie 5th round pick by the Ravens, and the Ravens have already waived him before the season's even started, which, as we were kind of discussing off air, I don't know whether that excites me. I don't know whether to be concerned about that, but I will say, and I'll throw it in this podcast as well as evidence, we did tip Kyu Blu Kelly up in the pre-draft process when we were talking about the cornerback position group and guys that we like and maybe some sleeper picks. We definitely did mention Kyu Blu Kelly, and Pez, I think you mentioned his performance at the Senior Bowl as well and stuff like that, and standing out and liking what you saw. So if I can find a little minute or 2 segment clip of that, I'll throw that in here.
Kyu Blu Kelly's a really interesting one. He's a guy that was mocked to us long before we got close to the draft. Everyone just looked at him and went, "That's a Pete Carroll guy." And looked
Stanford
like
corner.
Yeah, he looked like a guy that
Local guy.
I mean, I think he's six
Senior
foot,
Bowl.
slightly shorter arms than we'd normally go for. I think about 32 or 33. 33. Someone will have to check that and tell me.
Arms 32.
32. Okay, yeah. So a little bit shorter than we'd expect, and I think his 40 was disappointing, if I remember. I think he didn't test particularly well. I think he had a good vertical, but a bad 40.
His 40 was 4.52, but then his 10-yard was 1.49.
So he did well in drills, but
91%.
didn't in a straight line. Yeah. So I mean that. He fell off a little bit in mocks because of his performance at the combine. I think if he'd have shown out in the combine, he'd be a lock for the kind of guy we draft in a 3rd round sort of situation.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting move because Artie Burns, he got a hell of a lot of playing time against the Packers in the final preseason game, and for my money, looked pretty good in doing it. I think he potentially got the highest grade. I think he got like an 82.1 PFF grade or something coming out of that Packers game. So whether they told him, look, you're playing either for your roster spot or, we've got someone maybe in mind that, we'd quite like to trade you and see if we can get something. He was obviously made aware that something was on the line in terms of his future in that game, and he played excellent. So I'm surprised that he is potentially the one that they've gone with, sort of sacrificing to get Kyu Blu Kelly in. But when you look at the rest of them that they've carried on to the starting roster, Tariq Woolen is never going to get cut. Michael Jackson, even though he's had a fairly substandard preseason, you would still, I don't think anybody expected him to get cut or anything like that. And then obviously you've got Devon Witherspoon, who of course is not going to get cut. Kobe Bryant isn't going to get cut. And Trey Brown, who again just feels like they wouldn't cut him, even though we potentially had that discussion on this podcast. Where does he fit? It feels like they're not ready to give up on him yet, and obviously they haven't. But yeah, it's he's the real kind of, Artie Burns was the real kind of veteran on that cornerback group. He was the I think he was a first round pick in 2016 or 2016, something like that. So he's been in the league for the best part of 7 years, and the rest of that cornerback group now is really, really young. They're all practically rookies or second-year players, third-year players. Michael Jackson, I don't know what year he's in, actually, to be fair. But it's a really young group. It's such a fucking talented group, man. With so many raw, freaky athletes there on that cornerback group. Kyu Blu Kelly, another one, 6 foot. I think I'm looking at his broad jump here. 10 foot 11-inch broad jump. Which on the RAS, relative athletic score, sort of metric that they use to measure college prospects by, that measurement was given a 9.55 out of 10 in terms of the percentile that he was in. So that's a hell of a broad jump that he's got there. Interestingly as well, I'll put this graphic up on the screen for any of you who are watching on YouTube as well. But his 10-yard split, this will interest you maybe, lads, and I'm interested to see what you have to say on this, Mitch, as well. Obviously, it's someone that you've studied coming into the pre-draft process. His 10-yard split was a 1.51, which was a relative athletic score of 9.25 out of 10. His 20-yard split dropped to a 2.56, which in turn his rating dropped to an 8.87, but still very, very good. And then his 40-yard dash was a 4.52, which put him at a 6.26 out of 10, so more sort of, your average kind of score. But that shows to me that, okay, maybe he's not sort of, quick and stays quick for a long time down the field, so he may have some kind of trouble potentially covering your quick wide receivers all the way down the sidelines on deep routes. But if those scores are anything to go by, it looks like he's got a hell of a burst of speed, that initial burst of speed, to me, that would maybe suggest he's going to be better off playing in the slot, maybe in the nickel, somewhere like that you could use his burst of speed rather than sort of asking him to cover go routes and deep routes down the sideline, that maybe his speed drops off, whereas a Tariq Woolen's and a Devon Witherspoon's maybe doesn't. I don't know. I'm interested to hear your opinion on why they've picked him up and why they've gone with him.
You want me to go now?
You can go now, mate. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love what I saw out of him at the Senior Bowl. I think that was his real feather in his cap when it came to everything he put together in college and his profile and portfolio going into the draft. I think the Senior Bowl really put a feather in his cap. And when you watch that footage, you see a couple of things that really stand out for a corner. The confidence to know a throw's coming and not make the wide receiver you're covering look like he is covered, to make him appear open and to ball hawk off that guy is always a nice thing to see for a player's confidence when they're a defensive back. But what makes it more impressive, and you kind of alluded to this, when you're not blessed with huge amounts of speed, you see players back themselves less to make their guy look open and then try and close off and get underneath and make the play on the ball. And he still does it despite that, and despite not having the longest arms, being the tallest frame. He's quite shifty in short area situations. He's quite sort of twitchy, which probably shows up in his cone drill there, rather than his straight line speed. So I think you can find it on YouTube. There's like a 1-minute compilation of his pass breakups and his interception at the Senior Bowl. It's worth a watch because you really see him being combative. He really competes with wide receivers, and he really has the confidence in himself to make plays on the ball whilst putting himself in a disadvantageous position to make the quarterback want to throw. So I see that about him. And I think Pete will look at his fundamentals and see a very coachable person, a very coachable corner. It is also someone we interviewed pre-draft. It's someone we got in and interviewed. And it will be someone that we saw at the Senior Bowl because we're all over that usually. So there would have been a lot of homework on this guy. And it looks like they've jumped at the chance to get him.
Certainly have. They wasted no time in snapping him off the waiver wire. Pez, any thoughts? Are you surprised that they've maybe shit canned Darty Burns, or did you see any kind of move from the cornerback positions coming? What's your thoughts on this?
Me and Mitch had a discussion in the Discord, I think, about Artie Burns, and I said he'd probably get cut, but Mitch made a good point that he'd probably be more used as trade bait. But it then also comes to a discussion earlier today, me and Mitch had about this whole new situation with 90 going to 53. And this off-season and pre-season, I've definitely noticed a massive shift in the way teams have operated. You look at that, you look at the free agency, there's so many veteran players still just floating out on the market because I think solely because they can keep 90 players till the very end of the season. And that's why I think they probably may have tried getting something for Artie Burns, but everyone's just like, what's the point? There's 1,000,001 free agents floating around the waiver wire, free agency. Like, no, like I don't think when they signed him, I saw it and they didn't think, oh, they have a commitment in him. They just like, oh, he's a piece to see what they've got. So no, I'm not surprised with that. And Kyu Blu Kelly, like I spoke highly of him before the draft. I really liked him from the Senior Bowl, and Mitch covered it really well, like with the views on him personally. One thing I would like to say though, whilst you were talking, I was thinking about the depth. You made a point about the depth of the linebacker and the depth of the D line. Like, because my preseason guy, Levi Bell, literally. Well, I'll start it like this then, actually, give it some context. So at the start of preseason, everyone made a point that we're really thin on the D line. Like, they're worried about the D line being too thin. They're worried about the linebackers being too thin. But I don't think Levi Bell, like, granted, he's not overly, like, fully polished, but I don't think he could have done any more in preseason to improve his chance of getting onto that 53. Like, I was bullish and thought he could sneak on there because he set the edge, his rush, he showed everything he possibly could have shown. And granted, now as we speak, he's back on the practice squad. But it. 1 second, my dog's about to start kicking off.
He's heard you talking about Levi Bell. He's a fan as well.
It's a she, but she's a fucking pain in the ass. But sorry. So with that being said, something while she was talking, in my head it kind of flipped, like with him not making the roster, I think people don't realise how much depth we truly have at the defensive line. And like you said, at the linebacker position, like I really like Paddy O'Connell, and I thought he shone enough to show he could have maybe squeaked the 53 because we are thin at linebacker, but he's back again. He's back on the practice squad. But it's like we spoke about this preseason. I hark back to it. Is something I like is the rotation. This 53 and the way it's been constructed just shows me how deep we are in the rotation at positions. Like, I'm not talking offense, I'm only talking defense. That's all I've cared about all preseason. And it shows the depth of rotation and the consistency in that rotation. Me and Mitch said it, because we not really spoke about the Packers game. Just quickly bring it in. Me and Mitch spoke during that game about once Jordan Love finished bullying the backups, and then the backup Packers came in to play our backups, our game went up. So yes, they might not be starters, standalone starters, but the quality is there. They've shown that they can beat up a load of backups and they'll be able to slot in with the starters as the rotation. And this 53, there's no really surprise names on the cut or who made the 53. Well, I'm like, why has that guy made it? What shows that they clearly are content with their rotation. I think that's massively key.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up Patrick O'Connell because I knew, you've been talking about him on air, off air, all preseason. And I was going to sort of compare him to my Hall of Fame guy, John Rattigan, because he has made the 53. He was excellent in preseason, led the team in tackles against the Vikings and the Packers. Interestingly enough, it was Patrick O'Connell that led the team in tackles against the Cowboys. So two of our guys leading the team in tackles across preseason. But I'm really pleased with John Rattigan. Obviously, if you're a long time listener of this podcast, it's a running joke that we have here that John Rattigan. I said when we picked him up as an undrafted free agent all the way back in, what was it, like 2021, that he was going to be a Hall of Fame player. I loved what I saw coming out of Army, and then he obviously, I think he broke his leg or something, didn't he? Had a really major injury, and then he wiped out his pretty much the entire rookie season, and then it's just been like little special team glimpses and stuff like that ever since. But this preseason, it felt like I'm going to make this point very fucking clear. I do not think John Rattigan is going to be a Hall of Fame player, but it felt like this preseason was just it was my it was a bit of evidence to my theory. It was a bit of method to my madness that I could finally see on tape and show him to you guys that look, that John Rattigan is playing well. Like, he's actually a good player. I wasn't just taking the piss. Like, he is actually a decent player. So I'm pleased he's had a really good preseason. I'm pleased that he's on the 53 man. And I was surprised. I was surprised that Patrick O'Connell didn't make it as well. I would imagine that they'll be very keen to get him back on the practice squad. But again, when you look at the linebackers that we've got there in terms of the inside linebackers, he was always going to have a tough task in terms of beating out your Devin Bush and stuff like that. And maybe it's just come down to, John Rattigan has led the team in tackles in 2 preseason games. Patrick O'Connell's led the team in 1, and that's why they've gone with John Rattigan. And Rattigan was the only player he had to beat out. I don't know. But yeah, interesting omission that.
I'll just fire you to you, Mitch. Sorry. What I was saying about the construction of the 53, and I was just wondering, what you like? Do you have an opinion of how they've constructed the 53?
Oh, you've teed me up brilliantly, because I was going to. This wasn't rehearsed. So I am a subscriber to the Seaside Joe newsletters, and I don't know if either of you are Seaside Joers. This is me doing a little plug here for him, but I think he's been doing a newsletter every day on the Seahawks for 10 years. He hasn't missed a single day in a long time. He's one of the most dedicated content creators for Seahawks news ever. And days like yesterday, he puts out multiple. So yesterday, when the roster was released, he put out a really, really interesting comparison of the last 3 years of 53-man rosters that we've put out side by side. So you can see 2000, we started the 53 with X amount of linebackers. This year we've got this many. In between we had however many. So you can see what we usually carry. And that kind of gives you a little hint into the scheme. And has Clint Hurt changed the formation that much that we don't need 5 safeties anymore? Maybe, and the biggest difference is at linebacker, interestingly enough. So I'm going to throw back to you, Pez, just a quick question. How many linebackers do you think we started last year with on the roster? 2022, we've just released Bobby Wagner. How many linebackers did we start with?
I want to say 4 or 5.
Okay, James, what do you think?
I'm just trying to peel them off in my head. Peel them off, reel them off, same thing. Do you know what? I'm not gonna try and buy 2 raffle tickets like Pez does by saying 4 and 5. So I'll just say 4.
2.
2.
We started last year with a 53 announcing Jordan Brooks and Cody Barton as our linebackers.
Fucking hell, Cody Barton, Jesus Christ, yeah.
So we keep saying our linebacker looks a bit thin, and we've actually announced this squad, and we've said we've got Bobby Wagner, we've got Jordan Brooks, we've got Bush, and we've got Rattigan, and we've got O'Connell on special teams, who likely comes up to the squad once we announce injured reserves and things as well. And this comes at a time when we're talking 6 DB packages, Love coming into box safety roles, Jamal Adams coming into box safety roles. We're talking about Bryant as well, being like big nickel, or we're talking about all of that. Yet we've carried 4 linebackers into the 53. So the Seaside Joe podcast has really top podcast, the newsletter has really highlighted that, and you've teed me up perfectly there, Pez. I think this year the roster looks really thick and full in its depth, all the way down to 3rd or 4th options in some of our positional rooms. But I think also there's a little bit of bias within our franchise and the 12s, because it's the first season ever that we've been able to watch the full 90 for all 3 preseason games. I think we've been allowed to become more invested in all of these prospects. Usually, if there's a guy you've seen in all 3 preseason games, it means he made the cut from the 90 to the 85 to the 80, and by the time you get to game 3, you're only looking at cutting about 4 players, because 53 make the roster, 16 make the practice squad, and 70 become 69 or 67. So I think we've been allowed to really buy into these players, and potentially players like Levi. I know Levi Bell's been phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but I think we've seen so much of him that we're seeing him as a roster-worthy player, when the coaches might be looking at him and saying there's still work to be done there. Potentially, he'd have been a cut when we cut to 80. But did you get my point? I think I think we've seen enough of these guys to get an attachment.
Yeah, that's a good point. That actually,
he also may have been picked up by another squad as well. We may have cut him. Someone else might have taken him.
Yeah.
At that point, we might actually have had a better chance of keeping Levi Bell this year by having him on the 90 all the way through, cutting him and claiming him, rather than cutting him earlier and someone playing him in those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to throw out another guy here, because not necessarily I'm surprised that he was not on the 53 because of the way he played, but I'm just surprised that he wasn't on the 53 because of the new rules surrounding how many quarterbacks you can carry on the 53 this year, and that's Holton Ahlers. Obviously, he didn't make the cut. He was waived. Again, I'm presuming that Seattle are going to intend on bringing him back to the practice squad. But yeah, I was like we said on the previous podcast that we've done, we were all pretty much convinced that during the because of the new rules and being able to carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53, that Holton Ahlers was going to be a lock for carrying onto the 53, and he hasn't done. Like I say, I don't know. I said to you, Pez, it feels like there's something there with him, and then you saw the 2 sides to Holton Ahlers as the prospects at the end of the Packers game, that final 2-minute drive. I was watching that game and I was just thinking, right, okay, second half started, and I think, right, this is Holton Ahlers' half. I thought they were going to give a half to Drew Lock, half to Holton Ahlers, and then Lock comes out for the 3rd quarter, and I'm like, okay, fine. They did this in the other preseason games. They played Drew Lock for 3 quarters. Okay, they may be doing it again. 4th quarter, and it's still Drew Lock, and I'm like, is Holton Ahlers dead? Is he going to get an opportunity? And then they put him in to try and go into 2-minute mode and see if he can manufacture a game-winning drive. And for the first part of it, he looked pretty good. Made a completion or 2, took off with his legs as he's becoming his little trademark in pre-season. Showed his dual threat ability and his running ability, like say, a bit Tebow-esque. And then you saw the Tebow side in terms of the passing and the accuracy, because he forewarned us of what he was going to do with his throw that I think he was trying to hit Matt Landers, and it went about 3 yards to the right of Landers. It luckily hit the ground before the Packers DB would have intercepted it, but it was just miles off. It was a pretty horrible throw, to be honest with you. It wasn't pretty. And then the very next play or the play after, it was a play that came pretty much immediately after that one. He tries to force a ball into the end zone, which fair enough. It's the end of the game. It's preseason. Fuck it. He's trying to put something on tape and make something happen. I don't care that he turned the ball over, but he throws an interception into the end zone, and it's like, okay, that's why they're maybe not ready to trust Holton Ahlers yet. Whereas Drew Lock, even though he does turn the ball over, as we've said all preseason, he's looked a better version of Drew Lock this preseason. He looks a better quarterback than he was 12 months ago last preseason. I was really, really impressed with Drew Lock. And again, some of the throws he made to the Packers, against the Packers, to another guy who was a little bit surprised, Easop Winston, that didn't make the 53. I thought he had a better chance of making it over Cody Thompson. Thought he made some more plays in pre-season than Cody Thompson did. That touchdown in the first game against the Vikings, made some of the big catches and nearly got that touchdown as well against the Packers. So I was a little bit surprised them two didn't make it. I don't know what your thoughts are on either of those two. Mitch, do you want to go first? Sorry, Pez.
Holton Ahlers was the first one. Who was the other one you mentioned? You said 2.
Easop Winston.
Oh, Easop Winston. Yeah. Holton Ahlers, I mentioned this to Pez. He'd had this kind of this reputation of being quite good in the clutch, in 2-minute drills and whatever. And they trusted him with that in the first 2 preseason games, with seeing out the game and just sort of understanding the role and seeing the game through. The third game, we were obviously coming from behind, so it was a bit of a different remit for him. The first 2 was nothing risky, use your legs to get the first down if you have to, just kind of grind the game. He was excellent at it. The third game, like you say, it started off well. He was getting his completions, dual threat. As soon as we got to the end there, I think that the clock was winding down, and we were on 3rd down, weren't we, when he was intercepted? And you've got to imagine they'd have taken another shot after that. And I said in the Discord, and me and Pez were sort of reacting live to it in our Discord, and I said he's got to start chucking some shots now, because at the end of the day, if you throw a wild one in there and it's an incompletion, the clock stops anyway, right? So you've got 2 shots if you do that. So typically what a quarterback will do in that situation is they'll throw a wild one in there in a position where only the wide receiver has a 20-30% chance of getting it. That's out of reach for the DB. You throw the back shoulder stuff, you throw to the corners of the end zone. I feel like that shot he took was the right decision, but poorly executed. I feel like he tried to throw it in there in the mixer, but with his wide receiver having all the advantages, and he's actually just thrown it straight down the throat of a DB in the center, pretty much in the center of the end zone. So I feel like you say, maybe he's shown a little bit there that he's not quite capable of that yet. I do think we'll see him resign to the practice squad.
Well, breaking news: Bob Condotta, Holton Ahlers has returned to the practice squad. So there you go.
Good. I'll tick him off my list. So far, I've got. So far we've got Tyler Mabry back, which I've predicted on my little spreadsheet.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'll read out all the names that I predicted back and which ones have come back. So Mabry, Landers, Cade Johnson, Sir Roderick Thompson, Holton Ahlers, Easop Winston, John Hall, Leon Ryan, Ty Okada, Jordan Ferguson, Lance Boykin, Levi Bell, Matthew Guttell, Roderick Perry II, Paddy O'Connell, of which Paddy O'Connell's back, Matthew Guttell's back, Levi Bell is back, Ty Okada is back, Issa Winston is back, and Mabry is back. So six of my 14 so far are back. The one
It's
I
like
think
you know what you're talking about, Mitch.
it's almost nearly. The one I'm really hoping we get back is Sir Roderick Thompson.
I was going to bring Pez in because I knew Pez was going to want to talk about him.
Well, I'll stay clear.
But just
over to you.
He had this fullback sort of potential vision for him, and he was really keen on it. And then I didn't watch the first 2 preseason games live because the kickoff at 3:00 and sod that, to put it politely. But then obviously the Packers is 6:00, and I got my first little vision of Sir Roderick Thompson, and I liked what I saw. I saw what Pez was talking about. So Pez, you do have the floor on Sir Roderick. Did you say he's come back, Mitch? Or are we waiting on him?
No, he's the one I think that everyone will be most happy to see back. But I think he'll be our trickiest player to get back, honestly.
Yeah.
Because my biggest issue, it's kind of an issue, but it's not, because depending how they want the scheme to run and how they want their run game to, like, the identity of their run game. But you've got, like I said, all preseason, you've got Ken, Sharps, McIntosh, and in my opinion, they all kind of play. They all kind of run. Their style, their body, everything. It's all quite similar. Ken is a little bit different in a way where he tends to like to boot it on the outside, go for the home hitter. But when I look at them all, I just look and think they've all got the same kind of prototype of that type of running back. Whereas I just thought Sir Roderick Thompson brought a different element. And it's like, if the game isn't working out right, like we saw against the Packers, when we were playing the Packers like ones at the start, like don't get me wrong, our O-line was horrendous, but Charbonnet couldn't get anywhere. And that's going to happen. I think that's like I've always said about Charbonnet, like I think he'll blossom as the season goes on. I think it's going to happen a lot more when he starts meeting the ones in a regular season game. Hence why we've always said the compliment between him and Ken. But what if him and Ken start struggling? And then you bring in McIntosh, who's not fully healthy yet, but you bring in like a McIntosh, and it's like he kind of runs the same, or he's more of a pass catcher. So maybe it's just Sir Roderick Thompson runs differently to them. He's like a wiggle, like I said in the previous pod. He reminds me of like an Alex Collins-esque running back, a bit like a DJ Dallas, a bit like lightning. When they get it right, they're like lightning. The rest of them are like bulldozers. If you know what I mean. Can you see where I'm coming from? Like fleet-footed, maybe? I'm trying to think of the right way to describe him.
So what you're trying to say is some of them are Ferraris and some of them is a Land Rover?
Yeah, some of them are all torque, all power. Others
Right.
are just a bit more full of acceleration.
I was laughing there. I wasn't laughing at you because I did my little DJ thing when you were talking about coming back, and I was wondering when you were going to get to DJ. Mitch clocked it. You didn't. That's why I was laughing, by the way. Just putting it out there. I didn't have a random spasm or something like that, is what I'm trying to point out. So to make the point, I just feel like I really liked him because he brought a different element.
Yeah.
He brought a different element to help soften the defense, break him down. If Ken and Sharps just aren't getting it going that day, like, he can be a game changer. Like, Dallas can be that guy. But even though he's my boy and I love him, and I do believe he gets better as every season goes on, he just finds a new way to get a little bit better. This season's the first preseason where I've been a bit like, I've not seen anything new.
I'd like to add a couple of bits to your take, Pez, if that's all right. I think
if my takes made sense, by the way.
No, absolutely did, and I concur with you that there's a real sort of toolbox feel to the running back room. I feel like there's a tool in that box for a lot of situations now. I think Ken Walker is a bit more different to the others than perhaps you let on. But you did mention the sort of home run hitting element there. He's got a few things that he's got that breakneck speed, which the others don't really have. You don't see that from McIntosh or Charbonnet. Sir Roderick Thompson is a bit more shifty, a bit more evasive than the other guys, and then equally as good receiving passes. So it's just a different blend of skills to the other guys. So I like that about him. And I think, like you said, he broke the game wide open when he came on in every game he played in. I don't think there was a game that he was introduced in pre-season where you didn't go, that's made a difference, So I would really like to see him back. The second point I'd like to make about Sir Roderick Thompson is I absolutely see the DJ Dallas comparison. That he could be a good third down back. He can be a receiving back. He can do the hard yards as well. And I think in special teams you might see some fireworks with him too, especially returning kicks, because he, like you say, he is quite shifty. I can see that working. I think he also resets the clock on DJ as well, in the respect that if we don't renew DJ Dallas and we keep Sir Roderick Thompson, if we get him back and keep him there, DJ Dallas perhaps moves on, gets an offer from someone else, 2-year deal somewhere. Sir Roderick Thompson comes in, and whilst I'd miss DJ Dallas for his personality, because he's a big smiling assassin on that sideline. You always see him, he's got a cheeky look to him, and I think a lot of the players like having him around. Whilst that would be hard to replace, stylistically, you reset the clock a little bit with Sir Roderick Thompson, because you wouldn't be paying him what you're paying DJ Dallas, because he was a draft pick. Sir Roderick Thompson wasn't, and you get another 3 years of a third down back, adding depth to that room, providing the same skill set. So I think Sir Roderick Thompson's got a few good things going for him there in that respect.
But Mitch, are we not sure if in 3 years' time Sir Roderick Thompson is going to be 56 and have to retire?
I absolutely knew it was coming as well. James, tell me,
I had to get it in there.
Tell me you saw the picture of him.
I've done my research. I can confirm he does look like he's in his 50s. I will put it on YouTube. I'll put a screen grab on. Hey, listen, Sir Roderick, if you're listening, all I'm saying is, I don't know if you've tried sort of like Nivea. We've got Nivea in this country. Shout out to them. There's brands.
He doesn't look like a leper. Come on, he doesn't have any skin issues.
He doesn't look like a leper. And listen, I'm not going to say any of this to his face if I ever get the pleasure of meeting the man. But thankfully, the beauty of the airwaves allow me to recommend maybe try some new beauty products, the anti-aging. I don't know. I'm not trying to shit on the guy. But yeah, maybe. But no.
He does look a touch older than he says on the tin, though.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Just to quickly, I just want to throw. I had this thought earlier. I just want to throw something at you two. See what you think.
Oh, good lad.
But do you not think maybe the cut from Landers is because there is some more juicier quarterback names who have been cut?
You mean alternators? Yeah.
Yeah, I said Landers, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? What quarterbacks are you thinking of?
Well, you've got. Is it Cunningham and Zappi from the Patriots?
Did Zappi get cut?
Yeah, Zappi got cut.
I did not see that. Wow.
I think they don't have a backup quarterback at the moment.
I would love Bailey Zappi.
Could be something to watch out. What are the Patriots up to? But and then you've got Mitch. You mentioned Max Duggan. He got cut.
Oh, fucking tough.
I know, but I'm just saying, could it been a case where they heard the rumours these guys are going to get cut and they thought, Cunningham, I do like the idea. Zappi's proven that he's got summit.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a QB3 who's essentially going to sit behind Gino and Drew and just learn. You know what I mean? So I do like that. I remember when I looked at the draft at that Cunningham, he did look like he had some attributes, because I only looked at the quarterbacks who basically had traits, but who could learn off Gino the basics. Like maybe what do you guys think?
I'm gonna throw something out there. I don't know that this is the case, but I'm gonna. Do you think there's a world in which because Holton Ahlers was quite a big pickup for us. He had an incredible college season last year. He was quite a big pickup for us for the 90. And I feel like when you pick up a guy like that everyone wants to sign, you have to make some promises. And I feel like if you can't promise a guy makes the 53, I think or you can't promise the guy starting reps and you can't promise him a backup role. Perhaps you do promise him that if he doesn't make, if he isn't going to be a starter and he isn't going to be the backup, maybe you have to promise him that you'll waive him and give him the opportunity to be picked up off waivers in order to be able to get a second chance or a third chance at starting before being claimed back on your practice squad. Maybe he wanted, rather than rotting in quarterback 2 position all season, not seeing a snap, maybe he said, look, if I'm not going to be the starter and I'm not going to get reps, can you please cut me and give me another chance? And if nobody comes back in, I'll come back on the practice squad. There might have been a promise there to give him that.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Listen, for me, like I say, I would take Bailey Zappi. I think I like what I've seen from him in New England, but Max Duggan, just stop with that, because listen. We should all have PTSD when it comes to TCU players as Seahawks fans. So we went to the well. We went to the well before, right? And we got poisoned. The water wasn't safe to drink. Let's not go back there again. Like,
whilst we're talking about him, Mitch, did he manage to stay on the 53?
Literally what I'm doing now. we said it yesterday that whilst we don't want to see anyone's career suffer, we did kind of want to see LJ Collier cut after his comments about the Seahawks and wanting to come back and pump Geno. So I am now keen to see. Although it does seem like they're trying to tank their season with their cutting of QB2s. So maybe keeping LJ Collier on the
it's definitely going to help him out.
I'd love for them to keep. I want him. I want him on that 53. But I want to see him try and pump Geno Smith. I want to see him try. I want to see Abraham Lucas or Charles Cross just fucking ram him into the turf, play after play. I want to see him try. So please, if he's fit, obviously, which he won't be. Hopefully they haven't cut him.
He's not on their cut list, so it looks like he made the 53. So just for all the Seahawks fans and the NFL fans across the world, it is now confirmed that the Arizona Cardinals intend to win 0 games this year and pick first in the draft.
He's only made the 53 because there isn't 50. There's only 53 players willing to fucking play for the Arizona. There's not a queue outside the facility to go and sign up, is there?
It's actually 27. They've released a 27, and all the defense are going to play offense.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
I tell you what they'll be doing. Come the start of the season. Have any of you watched that Mark Wahlberg film Invincible about the Vince Papale, the player for the Eagles, where he goes and he works at like a bar or something and he tries out as like a general fan for the Eagles. They host like an open day tryout for anyone to come and turn along, and he turns up and makes the roster and scores a touchdown, whatever. Do you know what I'm on about, Pez, Mitch? Or am I just
I know the film.
Pissing in the wind here? Anyway. That's what I see the Arizona Cardinals 2023 happening at some point. The season's just going to be that shit. They'll have tanked it and they'll just start holding open day tryouts. Every man and his dog will just try out for the Arizona Cardinals. It's that much of a dumpster fire. And LJ Collier will still probably find a way to get cut. Yeah, so good on him. But at least he's made the initial 53. That's fair play to him. I don't know how you've managed to get me talking about LJ Collier yet again. That is going to be
the best bit of this podcast.
That's it. It's going to be a weekly, or it probably will become a weekly task for you two, or whoever's on the podcast with us, to just see if they can get James talking about LJ Collier in every podcast, and have a running competition. Yeah, and I'll add the scores up at the end of the season, and whoever wins will get an LJ Collier Arizona Cardinals jersey. I'll buy one. There you are. There's your prize.
No thanks.
No, right. Yeah, I won't get you one then. Anyone else anyone else that we haven't talked about? Anyone that feels needs a mention, either who've made the 53 that we haven't talked about, anyone that's been waived, anything that we haven't talked about yet?
No,
No?
I think I've covered everything.
Just flicking through now to make sure there's no other things to mention. There is one thing actually I think that's quite pressing that we could very quickly go around the table on. Interior defensive line. I said this week to Pez in Discord that I'm quite happy with Mario Edwards as a starting interior D lineman. I do think he can do a job, and I do think he's a good scheme fit. But the problem we have is that the backups we have injuries in Cameron Young and Mike Morris. So any disruption to our interior D line, I feel like we are suddenly scraping. We go from being comfortable to scraping the barrel, and any long defensive drives, as soon as we get sort of 13, 14 plays into a defensive drive, I would really like to see people coming in and rotating on that line that I would back in the clutch, and we don't have that. So in my take is that we don't have that. Sorry, I'm not saying we definitely don't, but to my opinion, we don't. If we had fully fit depth, maybe I'd say we do, but we don't. Do you both think that with it says 12 million roster cap space, but in reality it's more like 8, I think, because we have to leave 4 million cushion, don't we, for injured reserve and practice squad. So we're looking at 8 million. Do we want one big name to come in and improve the general quality of that line, a DeForest Buckner or a Jones, maybe on a reworked deal that was cap friendly this year with guarantees next year? Or would you take someone like Ndamukong Suh that's still out there as a free agent, so like a known veteran and somebody else? Would you take the numbers or the quality, is my question.
For me, in terms of a position that it's such a sensitive one on that interior defensive line, I would still say it's probably our weakest position. So for me, if we were to make an addition there, it would be quality over quantity. And Ndamukong Suh, I hate that guy, so I don't want him wearing a Seahawks uniform. I would take a veteran free agent like an Ndamukong Suh, but not Ndamukong Suh.
I mean, we did Snacks Harrison, right? So
yeah, we did Snacks. He always sort of flattered to deceive us. I never felt he reached the kind of ability that he could have done with us. But yeah, Snacks, we've gone to those kind of players in previous years. Obviously, Al Woods is another example, and ended up staying with the team probably longer than we all thought he would. So we have a history of doing it. But for me, it feels like if they're going to make a splash anywhere, it would be, in terms of a big name acquisition, a big sort of sign, it would be for an interior defensive line player. So I think DeForest Buckner makes a ton of sense. Obviously, Colts, sort of, it feels like they don't really know what they're doing. Are they rebuilding? Are they trying to make a playoff? I don't know what their sort of state of mind is at the minute. You would think DeForest Buckner would probably be interested in getting out of there and coming to somewhere like here where he'll start and sort of not have a load of sort of proven competition yet for reps at his position. So DeForest Buckner would make sense. I've got to jovially put Nick Bosa's name out there if he's in trade discussions potentially. If the
rumours are true.
If the rumours are true, would you take a Nick Bosa? Yeah, well, I would. Yeah, that's not rhetorical. Yeah, I would. But the one that makes sense is Buckner. Other than that, yeah, it'd be a veteran free agent for me. Anyone but Ndamukong Suh. But Chris Jones, I think, is out of our price range, both sort of cap space and the draft capital that we'd have to give up to get him. But obviously, I would love Chris Jones.
I think we could do Jones if we reworked his deal. I think if we turned, I think he's got 2 years. Is it 2 years or 1 year? I think if we reworked it and put in, so we could do like some void years, give him like a 2-year deal with 2 void years, pay him like 10 million signing bonus, which would then spread over the full 4, and then give him If we've got 8 million, then obviously we could pay him 5.5 million, 6.5 million salary, and that would fit this year. And then you could put him on incremental for next year as well. So we're doing like 8 million plus the 2.5 next year, and then he's also got the 2 sets of 2.5 million for the 2 voyages. You could work it in a way you could squeeze him in this year, pay him a bit more next year, and then put the void years in so you can give him a bit extra in a bonus, and he could earn more this year and squeeze in. It's the trade capital we'd have to give up, or pick plus a player that we'd have to give up. That would be the pinch on that one. Pez, what do you reckon?
If they went for a Chris Jones, to me that would say they are ready to win. They think they can win. It's a massive statement. I wake up and they traded for Chris Jones. John and Pete think that's it. The anchor's coming up and we're going full bore at it. 3 years we're going all balls to the walls. Buckner doesn't. He does elevate us, but it doesn't scream we're going to give up all this capital. Like, we're going to give up loads of capital because we know we're there. He's just a really nice piece. I personally think it wouldn't surprise me if they got an Dominican Suin, and I wouldn't mind it, because Seahawks fans hate him because of what he did to us. Because he's dirty. He's dirty and angry. But do you know what? Dirty and angry players are always good when they're on your team being dirty and angry to everyone else. And he's a monster against the run. And he's proven he doesn't need much conditioning to do it at a really elite level.
Yeah. I just want our interior defensive line to be steady enough this year so that more balls get thrown into our secondary, because that is where our roster looks really talented. If we can force more balls to go in there rather than being run down our throat this year, I think we're going to see a lot more takeaways and we're going to see a lot shorter drives, which means more time with our offense on the field, which is stacked. I think that one fix brings all of our strengths together into 4 quarters of the game.
Well, you look at Pete's last defense. Obviously, comparisons are just stupid, but we love to do them. I'm not completely comparing it, but the unspoken truth about the Legion of Boom defense was the guys up front. Red Bryant, Chris Clement, Bain, them got Averill, Bennett. Like, them boys didn't get anywhere near enough as credit because they didn't have a fancy cool nickname. But they created what Cam, Earl and Sherm were, because just what Mitch said. You have a stout D-line, they have no other choice but to start throwing it. And I think Ndamukong Suh is actually the perfect guy to mentor a player like Cam Young.
If you want to turn Cam Young into a dirty bastard, yeah.
Yeah, on my team,
James has so much hatred.
Listen. If they're being dirty, horrible bastards on my team, welcome on board.
Can tell he's a Preston fan.
Doesn't matter. If they're doing that to the Niners, if Ndamukong Suh's crawling some Niners player, you're not going, oh no, he's such a fucking idiot. No, you're like, yeah, let's go. Do it again.
But yeah, you're probably right, yeah.
Young is a young, big-ass, angry man. Let's get an old, big-ass, angry man in. Next season, see you soon. Thank you very much. Go and destroy everyone.
Yeah, I don't like Ndamukong Suh for obvious reasons. And it would be weird to see him in a Seahawks jersey. I certainly wouldn't be getting a jersey with his name on. I'd prefer the Ndamukong Suh jersey to the Collier Cardinals shirt, James, just FYI. But
okay. No, I'll get one for James for his birthday, don't I?
You're not getting one.
But I don't want to see it. And I think it's just, if there was another experienced nose tackle on the free agent market, I'd be mentioning his name, not Ndamukong Suh. But the fact is, there are 3 veterans, free agents currently, and he is the biggest name of all of them, and he's the best fit for what we're looking at.
Say, looking at our 53 and the guys that we're with, and that it's still the position that screams to me that they could potentially do with a bit more meat at and a bit more depth at. So we'll watch that market with open eyes in the coming days and weeks, and see if the Seahawks make any moves as the season starts to get underway. But yo, we're done at yo. What the fuck was that? Where the fuck? I've never said yo in my entire life. Where the fuck did that come from?
I bet that gets cut out. I bet that's get cut out. He always leaves me with embarrassing shit what I do, and he'll be like, "Oh, let's end it."
All right, well, I'll hold you to
what
it.
gets cut out? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
No, I'll keep it in. I'll hold you to it then, Pez. But yo, oh fucking hell, I've done it again. Well,
that's incredible.
It's late. He's done. Yo.
Right. Prissy hell. All
JB in the house.
Oh god. Fuck off. Well, you are getting an LJ Collier jersey if you carry on. No, we've talked all about the 53, all the guys that have been waived, and whether they're waived back or not. And we'll be back next week. Might well be back this week as well, to talk all things Seahawks as well. It's getting to the fun season on our podcast, because coming next week, obviously, as we always do every year, the week prior to the first game, we have a little bit of fun with our pods. We start getting a little bit crazy. We do that annual hot takes pod, which I know is mine and Pez's favourite pod. I know from feedback that we get and stuff, it's a lot of people's favourite pod as well, where we just go batshit crazy and statements like Hall of Fame John Rattigan come out and stuff like that. So we can't wait to get that one done. Hopefully we'll be joined by maybe a special guest or two as well, who will give us their hot takes too, which will be a load of fun. Obviously, we're going to do a 53-man starting 11 predictions, where we predict who is going to be starting in each position, that we did last year, and we got quite a fair few of them right, and obviously a fair few of them wrong. So we'll be looking forward to that one as well. But we're going to have a lot of fun. But thank you, as always, for tuning in with us. However you tune in, YouTube, or whether you're one of our OG listeners and you listen via the airwaves, wherever you get the podcast, thank you always for listening to us. We love the lot of yous. But Pez, Mitch, as always, thank you to you two fine gentlemen. I couldn't be scolded and bantered and memed without you. So I appreciate your company as always. What are you trying to say, Pez?
Just jump in before you sound us off. Don't forget to come join us in the Discord.
Yes.
We're just a small little, we're growing. We're about 30 people in there. It's very active. But if you fancied, if you listen to the podcast and you're like, I'd love to talk to more Seahawks fans and have my opinions and my takes, come join us. Everyone says what they want. No one gets laughed at. No one gets...
Other than me.
Yeah, except for James.
Yeah.
That's just easy pickings. But if you come and have your say, everyone gets involved. Everyone has a proper conversation. It's not like some of these other Discord groups who are a lot bigger and people just get laughed at for having an opinion. Just come along, join us.
Yeah.
And for all the deep analytics, Mitch is always
I was going to say, thanks to Mitch as well. It is probably going to be the most professional looking Discord server you'll ever join, with the most beautifully labelled sort of subsections, and it's wonderful.
And if you're a college football lover, Mitch is your man. He will keep you entertained all through the college season on there.
And listen, spreadsheets as well. If because I know Mitch is always looking out for spreadsheet people to share his fetish for spreadsheets with him. So if you're a lover of Excel and spreadsheets as well, then there's like-minded people in our Discord as well. But no, listen, thank you as always. And for now, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Yo Hawks.
Yo Hawks.
I've been waiting.